Okay. Hey, okay, I think we're live. You know it, biker chick. I went to biker training last weekend. It was a beautiful thing. I have made a video about my biker chick days in our Patreon account, and it will be live there pretty soon. Hello, everybody. Jamie, how's it going? What's happening?
Good. Hello, everybody. Excited to see questions and get some answers for them.
I know, be here on a Friday. I have to settle into our Friday hangouts, right?
After a long week, it's kind of, we have to prep ourselves and get pumped up for it.
I know, it's crazy. My son is going to be a freshman in high school, my youngest son. So last night we went to the football game. His school is a brand new school. It's brand new, brand spanking new. So it was really fun to go to the football game and, relive our high school memories. It was a gorgeous night. Like North Carolina, one of my favorite things about North Carolina is like the sun setting in one direction and the big, huge moon is over there in the others. We had a great time. So
that's awesome.
Yeah,
I didn't know they were having those already.
First game. So it was really fun. Okay, let's get to some good questions here, Jamie. I know you have ones prepared, but I see a couple good ones here already that we can dig in. A question about if ACJ double should tell my girlfriend if I'm addicted. Super Sunny D, what if you live by yourself? I know these are great questions, so keep putting your questions in, everybody. Hi, Chris, you're not late. Perfect timing, my friend. Okay. How do I always look so good? Oh gosh, I'm telling you, I'm not going to tell you what happened, but I had a wee bit of a mishap on my motorcycle. So I, in fact, have been concussed all week, and I'm not even kidding. I am a shade of gray and my face has been puffy all week long. So it has been a rough looking week. My husband looked over at me, at the football game, and he goes, "You actually look pretty good today." I'm like, "Thanks, I think." But so okay. So Jamie,
with no action.
Yeah, I know. Thank you. Okay, so where would you like to start this time?
So I've got a really good question from Omar, and it says, "Can you talk about why the withdrawals are getting worse after the reboot process? I would relapse and get really bad headaches, anxiety, mood swings, brain fog. Why does this happen?"
Okay, that's a great question. So this is great. Okay, so withdrawal symptoms, why would they get worse during the recovery period? But recognizing that the question also includes that they are getting worse because of relapses. So when you embark on this journey and you decide you're going to stop watching pornography, hopefully stop masturbating, you are making that commitment. So when you're actually able to put that into place, your brain starts to unwire itself from the brain pattern that uses energy in the extremes, that fast energy, extra slow energy. So when you start unwiring that brain pattern and it starts healing itself, you're moving in the right direction. But when there's a relapse, you're giving your brain that flood of dopamine, and it's going to send it back out into those extremes of performance. And when it does that, when it's been coming into the middle to heal, but now it's thrown back out into the extremes, it can make you feel worse. And I know it's tricky to avoid relapse, and we've talked about it before. If you do have a relapse, learn from it. But if you feel worse, it's because dopamine is flowing into your system. And then after that relapse, it's going to go lower than ever, and cortisol is going to spike again. And so what happens is then you feel good in the moment of relapse, but you feel doubly worse after. And then we've talked about the chaser effect before, where that can happen too, where then once you get all that dopamine, your brain's going, yo, I want more of that because that was easy. To get all that dopamine, hitting the easy button, and this isn't feeling good. And if you remember, porn trains your brain to not go into the world to find dopamine, just to go back to the screen. So a relapse is basically you've been training the puppy of your brain to go into the world for lower levels of dopamine and all the other neurochemicals. And now when you give it this hit, you're telling the puppy, just come back here. And the puppy's like, this is so easy. Let's just keep doing this. And, so you want to try to avoid relapses during the recovery period, especially at the beginning. And I know the questions always are, what are the best way to fight the urges? And I see that Mad Max is asking that.
That's
and
exactly the next one I was going to pick.
Yeah. And the best way to fight urges, it's not going to be easy. So the best way to fight urges is to make a plan ahead of time so you know what you're going to do when the urge hits, and then go do that thing. And honestly, it should totally involve moving your body, heavy lifting. The people who have succeeded at that point in this journey have made a plan that they really use their body, work out to exhaustion, just lift some heavy stuff. It doesn't have to be an actual workout. Go lift the heaviest thing you can, set your mind to, the heaviest piece of furniture in your home. Go outside, move some logs, chop something up, go do something that involves really working on your brain, because you'll flood dopamine into your brain when you do some heavy lifting or you work out. And then also if you can, try to not keep thinking about the urge and to move through it, that is the most successful way. So lift something heavy, try that. That's the easiest thing for right now. What else you got for me?
I have a question from AR, and you talk about this a lot in your program. And I will just say that, this is one of the biggest things that you do emphasize in your program is, get on purpose with your relationships, your hobbies, so how do you find purpose in life?
Yeah, so that's a great question, is that to be able to find purpose, you have to get quiet with yourself. So what does that mean? It means that you decide, or you quiet your mind enough with the busyness of the world and life and constant stimulation from YouTube or Instagram or whatever social media. People are constantly feeding their brains with that, just unintentionally consuming, data or information or nothingness. That takes a lot of your brain's energy. It blocks you from your purpose because you're just pleasure seeking, getting hits of dopamine. So you have to quiet your mind. I do this every morning. Every morning I just sit there. So this morning I got up, I'm hanging out in my favorite spot, listening to the silence, one of my favorite sounds in the morning because of living such a busy life. And I'm not thinking about anything in particular. I'm just chilling and letting whatever come to me. And in those moments, you can figure out what you actually care about. So just sit there. Here's the action step. Just sit there, don't do anything, and think about what comes to you. Then journal. Get a journal out. Buy a pleather one on Amazon. You can find them for very affordable. And write down the things that you care about. Now, remember, if you're sucked into a porn and masturbation habit, the things you care about might not be easy to put your thumb on right now, but think about the things you've cared about historically, the things that have been important to you. And those are the things that are your purpose. So people have in them from a very young age, and this goes back to the inner child, thinking about who your inner child, little Trish. What did little Trish want before the world started telling her what I need to produce? When you go back to the things that were important to you, you can know what's important to you. So think about the hobbies, the things you used to like to do before the world got at you. Then think about what did you want to be when you were young? Ironically, I would never want to be the thing that I wanted to be. I wanted to be the first woman president.
Wow.
When I was young, which now we have a woman vice president. I'm not even that much of a feminist, just because I was a girl. I wanted to be president. That's what I wanted to be, which is so funny because now I don't know anything political. And advice is stay away from political stuff if you can, because it really puts a lot of stuff in your brain to chew on. But I wanted to affect change in a positive way for the world. So even though I'm not political now, at the root of that desire to be president is the desire and the purpose of helping as many people as possible to live the life that they want for themselves and that they deserve. And, hopefully at the core, our presidents are geared at that. At least historically they have been. We won't go there because we're not going to talk about that. But, so that purpose is still in me, and when I was young, I remember when I was young too, I also wanted to be a lawyer or a doctor, so fundamentally in there, and lawyers and doctors do very similar things in terms of like differential diagnosis, trying to figure out the elements to something to be able to help people. So, that's what little Trish wanted. Then the hobbies that you want, if you working out is really important, but being active is more important than working out. So like find the ways that you like to be active in the world, engaging with the world and getting dopamine. That is your purpose. And being able to connect with other people and contribute to the world in the way that only you can. And I know you may have lost sight of that because so many people lose sight of it. But when you gain sight of it, and the only way you can is by quieting the noise that you put into your brain. When you quiet it and you're like, you know what? I want to be a plumber. I'm going to be the best plumber there is. There's huge value in that. The purpose is the thing that you want to contribute to the world, and only you can do it in the way that you're going to do it. And every single one of us has that in ourselves. And actually during my morning meditation, which I know this is not, I am the queen of Post-it notes, but every morning I always write things down on a napkin as I'm sitting there, because I don't have paper because I'm, kind of in my zone. I was thinking about this is that we, especially when we talk about pornography, we're talking about people who get sucked into this, hit the easy button for instant gratification and pleasure, and it's seeming pleasure because it doesn't even work. You're looking for satisfaction. That satisfaction can be found in your purpose. But you have to realize the way that you've gotten yourself accidentally into trying to find satisfaction is not real. It's actually an unreality, like I've talked about in videos before. And it's just your brain has been hijacked to go to this pleasure-seeking easy button. So when you back yourself out of that pattern, now you can find the space and the quietness to go, okay, what would actually bring me real satisfaction, not the substitute. This is what I wrote down, is that it's the substitute for satisfaction. And actually going to the substitute actually gives you feelings of inadequacy because it's not the real satisfaction that you're looking for. You think you're going there for satisfaction, but it's just tricking you. So then if you decide that you want to be an artist, that might be the thing that's been in you forever. And, then following that dream of becoming the best artist in your story, creating your own story. And check this out. This is amazing. Hopefully my mom's not watching. I'm sure she's not, but because I'm about to say some stuff about her. Sorry, Mom, as much as I love you, is that talking about family dysfunction and intergenerational transmission of this stuff. I didn't even tell Jamie this one. I talked to my dad twice over the weekend when I was taking my motorcycle classes, and he's so cute, supporting me, but obviously he doesn't want his daughter riding a motorcycle. But he said, yeah, your mother said something yesterday that no child of hers is going to ride a motorcycle. And I'm like, Dad, you're going to have to break this one to Mom. That's not her choice anymore. And I'm 48. It's not like I'm 18. And I said, I know this from being the parent of an 18-year-old who is making her own decisions, and I'm trying to support her in those decisions. She's going to screw up. She's going to make mistakes. I want her to know that whatever she wants to create for her life, I'm behind her. And I do that with all my kids. And I know not all parents do that. But for you to be able to go, you know what? You might not like this, Mom. I'm riding that motorcycle anyways. That's you finding your purpose. And not everything has to stick. Trying the things that you're inspired to do in the moment becomes really important. So get quiet, stay off of social media, stay off of everything for a day or two. Make sure it's Thursday through Sunday when my videos aren't on though, right?
And you talk about that, having the multi-generation or how you just said that, we really tend to do the things that, our parents had taught us or things we heard growing up, they just tend to stick. So, finding your authentic self is really important. And you do a wonderful job of being able to tell people how to do that in your program. And I will say that's how I was able to learn. And it was very, very valuable.
I'm cracking up with the comments, not you. Exactly, Christopher Strickland. Did you not like blood, so you knew you couldn't be a lawyer? That is too funny. I have a lot of friends that are lawyers, and actually, when I went to school, I would study in the law library. Your middle-aged one. I was talking to someone, about internet. Of course, we talk about the dawn of the internet with pornography, but the internet was barely a thing when I was in graduate school, and I would spend all my time studying in the library. And then I would go over to the law library because it was much fancier and study there. Okay. Do you have a question for me there?
So I do have a question. What about, I'm trying to find it to put it on, but it was the question about being alone. When you live by yourself, you don't get out. You're not able to get out, say, due to COVID or other situations. I had a gentleman that I was doing a consult with the other day, and he is disabled. He doesn't have the ability to go somewhere and find somebody. So what do you suggest for those that are not able to get out?
My job is to challenge people's thought systems. Just remember that. I tell people in my coaching calls all the time, that is why I'm here. That's what you are paying me for, is to challenge your thought systems. Because if you try to solve this thing from the thought system that got you there, you're not going to be successful. So I try to challenge people's thought systems with a great deal of love and compassion. And I'm going to do that right now, is that we create the lives that we have. I mean, not a disability, obviously, but all we can do is control what we can control, how we react to things, how we deliberately and intentionally go about our days. And actually, this happened this morning too. I'm totally beat. I wanted to sleep in. My alarm didn't even go off. I just ended up waking up early, and I thought to myself, I have a lot of things to do. And at the end of this day, and this is the micro decisions we've talked about before, I can either get up early, do my meditation, then get into my work and feel good, or I can go back to sleep, which I really wanted to do. But I pulled myself out of bed because then I got to do more of the things that I wanted to. And so you can do that too. You can get out of your home and go for a walk or a run. Even the places that are most locked down, people are able to go out and, get into the world 15 minutes, half hour. Some places still have restrictions. You're not allowed to go, out. But what you can do is create an intentional schedule for what your life looks like within your home. And most people don't do that. And, that is really powerful. Deciding what time you're going to get up and getting up at that time. Having a morning routine, meditation, like I see Doug added, meditation is a game changer. If you don't know how to meditate, find an easy strategy. Just do what I said. When you sit on your couch with a glorious cup of coffee, I'm talking about coffee again, coffee sitting next to you, what I do is I let it sit there, and then I literally just do nothing for 10 minutes. It's my favorite time. And that is a type of meditation. I use other meditation techniques, but just sitting in the silence and enjoying the silence, being present in it and bringing yourself and your awareness to it is a type of meditation. Just start there. I tell people all the time, just sit on your couch for 5 minutes. Don't look at your phone. Don't talk to anybody. That is your start to meditation. Try that. But then being intentional about your day, flexibly scheduling it. So if you're at home, you can decide that you are going to go for a walk, you're going to be active, you're going to work out, you're going to do body weight training is what I tell people. You can work out with no equipment. And so you can do push-ups, you can do sit-ups, you can do burpees, even though they're painful, you can do squats, you can move your body without anything, making a time for that. And just spending an hour just moving your body. You can do a puzzle, which challenges your mind and it gets your mind on board. You can decide you're going to learn something. You can read. You can take a nap. Before you know it, you have a flexibly scheduled life that falls out in a consistent manner, that you're achieving things that you want to, especially when you figure out what your purpose is. You can do something towards work you love. So if right now you don't have a job that you love, you go to work in the job you don't love, but then you can spend an hour in the evening thinking about something that you do love that can become your next job, which means you're stretching yourself and you're scheduling your life. But think about your days and your nights and be intentional. Remember this word, intentional. Building new habits like we see here. Hi, Ina. Yep, intergenerational. It's crazy, isn't it? Especially like, hearing that at my age, it's like, okay, so do you have anything else, Jamie, before I keep going through here?
ACJ, I don't know how you say that, but should I tell my girlfriend that I'm addicted to porn?
Okay, I love this. And thank you for bringing this up, because I know that this is tricky, and I've had this conversation a few times this week. And I encourage you to. And here's the deal, is that if it's definitely going to make things worse before it gets better. It's called rupture, like a wound. It ruptures and then you repair it. But without the rupture, then then there cannot be repair. Actually, I got into bed last night after a really long day, and I didn't feel like watching anything real and long. And you know what I put on? I don't know if you like it or not, but it's the movie This Means War with Chris Pine, that other actor, and Reese Witherspoon. But my point about that movie, I only put on a few minutes of it, and at the end, and he is a spy or an agent or whatever he is. So he's lied to his wife, and they end up getting divorced because he lied to her. He said he was a travel agent, but instead he was like a government agent, in the police or whatever. And at the end, they get back together because she says it's nice to finally meet you, because he compartmentalized that part of his life and lied to her and never let her know the full him. And women know that. Women know if you're leaving pieces out. And so when you have an actual healthy relationship, what it involves is becoming vulnerable. And actually, I have a note to talk about this myself in a different way in a minute, but becoming vulnerable. So you become invulnerable. You don't have to hide anything from somebody. Then guess what? You're free. But this is the deal, is it's going to make things worse before it makes it better, probably. And she may need tools to be able to handle that. And so what I'm also creating is a partners program with, I'm not doing it, my colleague, Adria Sullivan, who is a skilled psychotherapist. We're putting together a new website. It's called Sanity After Betrayal, because we know that women go through betrayal trauma when they find this out, especially if they find out that you've been addicted to porn for the last 30 years. That is like, you've been hiding this from me for 30 years. They feel completely betrayed. Even if it's 5 years, it's like the person I thought I was with and that I was sharing all the parts of me with has been keeping this thing from me for 1 year, 2 year, 20 years, 30 years. But if she's able to handle that, then guess what? You succeed more, because now it's you and her against the hijacker. And so the people who succeed faster and easier are the ones who have their girlfriend or their partner on board. So if you want to succeed, the cat's out of the bag, and then guess what? You don't have to hide anything anymore. And what you might still find, which is, interesting, is that the hijacker will manipulate you until you go from, ignorant to wishy-washy to 100% committed. You still might be manipulated by this addiction and this hijacker, and that hijacker is going to make you manipulate her. But now at least the two of you are like, wow, this is the hijacker manipulating the two of us, and we're going to go to work on putting this behind us. So yes, it can be really, really powerful, but at the same time, making sure that you have strong communication skills and interaction skills. I just talked about this in the 90-day program in the group. We talked about this for a long time. People were reporting really cool ways that they're growing in terms of communicating and interacting and not feeling attacked and not attacking and taking breaks to be able to stay with the core issues that there are. So it can become really cool. And this is a transformational journey. So if you're going to transform your life, you should want to transform it with your partner. Not to keep going, but I'm going to share one more thing, is that I was recording a podcast with a guest yesterday. And, I was talking about, and he was sharing, it's coming up in a couple of weeks, but he was sharing that, he thinks actually that men want to be in connection in a relationship, and that most men are preparing themselves to find a honey, which I thought was an interesting perspective from a younger guy who's in the motivational business. But, I talk about it that way too, that if you're not looking for connection and you're just going into porn, you're just denying that need for connection that you have in there. And you're trying to say, I can just take care of all my own needs in this screen. But those aren't real people. And it's out of fear of rejection or lack of self-esteem to be able to go to another person and say, this is the whole, full, real me. And so in the 90-day group, we were talking about, like, when you learn to do that, it's like so freeing, and that you can, engage in that in a relationship in a whole new way. But what we were talking about when we were recording the podcast is, I talk about marriage, and, I again, we've said this here before, like, maybe marriage isn't for everybody, but having a person that you can live your life with, that you can totally crack up with, you can do weird things with, you can, is super fun. That's what the spice of life is, to have one best friend. And, I consider my husband to be my very best friend, that, he shares things with me that he doesn't share with anybody else. I share things with him that I don't share with anybody else. And that's the beauty of having a partner. And hopefully you want that with your partner. And then you have to open yourself up to be able to do that.
You absolutely have to be vulnerable. But it's a great thing. It is a wonderful thing. So I have another question. This is kind of a two-part question. Can I use a blocker? But then Sunny D asked, okay, I do have a blocker, but still look at social media. So it's, how can that work?
Blockers are just fences in the short run. So if you want to, and Jamie and I were just having this discussion earlier, because we've talked about porn blocker or blocker X on this channel before. And I work with a lot of people, and they're like, I just turn it off. I end up turning that mechanism off after a little while. And, so that might not be the right one if that's where you're at. So all people are on a different, it's a continuum from 0 to 60, and you might be at a different place on this continuum. So Covenant Eyes actually has artificial intelligence technology that takes screenshots of what you're viewing and sends it to an accountability partner. And so, like, if you're actually committed to not going on social media, that can be one of the things that is listed as a site that you're not to go on. And that can be sent to your accountability partner, because it is the slippery slope. So the people who I work with that are most successful and they really need blocking software will get Covenant Eyes. It takes the screenshots, it blurs out, and then it sends it to your accountability partner. And you have to have someone who is, your partner, your girlfriend is not usually the best person because they're too emotional about it. But having someone that can go, all right, what's going on? You're obviously on Instagram because you're trolling for moving in the wrong direction towards that slippery slope. So you can use blockers in that capacity too. But again, it's just a fence. So I also recorded a success story that's in the Patreon account. And one of my clients that is being amazingly successful after a very difficult journey used Covenant Eyes, got an accountability partner that they can trust, and actually created this really great bond between him and his accountability partner. But the more important thing that he did was set a schedule and set parameters around his social media use. And guess what the first parameter is? Getting off it altogether. A washout period, giving yourself a washout period to unwire the brain pattern that needs to go back to social media. And what he did, which I ironically have been doing lately a little while ago, was he only watched things on Disney Plus, so that he could keep the triggering. Even on Disney, there's still slight triggers, but keeping the triggers to a minimum, watching only Disney Plus. Then he added back in YouTube after he cleaned up his, page of what's served up to him. When you stay away from sites that are triggering and you take them out, they won't be served to you anymore. And if you fill it with motivation or with cooking shows, if you like to cook, or motorcycle channels, it'll start feeding you channels, or an Instagram, it'll start feeding you feeds on your purposes and your passions. That's how you can use social media in the end. Here's the thing to remember, and I've said this to so many people this week, and then they stare at me in silence and kind of shake their heads. I say, why are you going on social media? Why? And they're like, they know they're going there to be triggered. That is why you're there, to get a little dopamine drip that's going to pull you back in so that you can get the dopamine flood. That's the hijacker, my friend. You just need to stay away, and the blockers help you do that.
Awesome. I've got a question about, and I've gotten a lot of questions about this in my emails. So, what about poor memory after somebody's not used it for a long time? It can still be very strong, unwanted thoughts. What do you do?
Yeah, this is a great one. I talked about this 20 times this week too. And I know what you're thinking. You just said that. So why are you saying the same thing over? Because it all comes together. So memories are going to keep being fired up as you keep firing up those neural pathways. So we need to create and fire up new neural pathways. How do we do that? We do that by tapping into your purpose. So when you think about work that is exciting to you, then you'll start having those thoughts. And remember, I talked about, sorry, I'm choking. Little choke never killed anybody, right? Okay. So remember, I talked about this, I think 2 weeks ago now, that memory isn't time. It's the amount of stuff that you put in. So you put in porn thoughts, lots of times over the course of years or decades. So it's going to take time for those neural pathways to die away. But in the meantime, if you start creating new thoughts and putting them in, you're not going to wait for time to pass. You're going to push those thoughts out. So think of it this way. It's like a glass. If you have a glass full of porn thoughts and that's all that's sitting in there, you can wait for that to evaporate and go away. Or if you start pouring in new thoughts, it's going to spill over and the old thoughts are going to start coming out slowly but surely. And you're going to start filling that glass with the new thoughts. And the new thoughts are work that you care about. What you're going to do in your relationships, become a better friend, become a better son or daughter, become a better colleague at work, become a better partner, start putting some time and energy into your relationships. It'll be fun for you. You'll start getting dopamine. Plus, you're going to be filling your new memory cup with the things that you think about. Do the same thing with your hobbies. So think about the things you like to do and start filling that cup. And hopefully that cup analogy will help you because it will spill over and all those memories will start going away and the new ones will be in there. And then that pattern will be unwired and a new pattern will be created and you'll start hardwiring in that new neural pathway. And then you won't have those thoughts anymore. That's the best thing you can do. Get on purpose in your life and start putting lots of thoughts in. And then integrating it into social media and blockers, you put a blocker on your phone and your computer as a fence in the short run while you're cleaning up your social media feed. You go off, you clean it up, and then you go off. And so when you go back, it's just like the neural pathways. Now it's filled with motivation and your passions, and it's not filled with any of those old thoughts. They've gone away.
Awesome. This one is not one that's on the log, but it's from Sebastian. This is, can you compare the amount of dopamine being released in PMO versus sugar or cocaine or heroin? Obviously, both of them being addictive.
Yeah, I can. And honestly, I can't find studies that give me hardcore numbers, which is why I'm never willing to commit to a hardcore number. Hi, Tyrell Westbrew. First time coming live. Welcome. But I can tell you that it's different in two ways, is that there's more dopamine, and I'm going to get you numbers. I'm looking for them. Trust me. And so this is what happens though, when it's linked to heroin or marijuana or alcohol, there's lower levels of dopamine, which is, remember, a pleasure seeking neurotransmitter. It's linking pleasure to the thing that you are doing. Alcohol, drugs, social media, you get dopamine from social media. When it is linked to pornography is a super normal stimulus. It's the highest, I got a bug buzzing the tower now, It is one of the highest supernormal stimuli. So now what you've done is, in terms of, dopamine is linking itself to the highest dopamine producing activity. So basically it's like dopamine linking itself to dopamine. So the dopamine levels are much higher. And this is the most important part that I haven't talked about in a little while. So thank you for asking this question, is that the brain mechanisms behind a pornography habit or compulsive sexual behaviors are being created at the age of 8 right now. It used to be 11 years old. This is a major differentiating factor that we're forgetting in the world. So if you found porn, we'll just say 10. We don't need to be dramatic with the 8. But if you found porn when you're 10 years old, the science shows that when your brain is hijacked by dopamine at the age of 10, it's much stronger of a hijacking than it is as your brain develops and gets older. So there's not many 10-year-olds around that are drinking alcohol all the time. That usually kicks in right in those college years or teenage 20s. Some people don't start drinking till 30. So if you start watching pornography when you're 10, 11, 12, the way that the mechanisms in your brain are being hijacked is so much stronger. And those neural pathways are being used then, and it's being linked to this supernormal stimulus, which can be devastating. Same thing for heroin. There's not many 10-year-olds that are using heroin, alcohol, drugs. Those don't usually take place till later. And by then you've got like 10 years of these dysregulated neural mechanisms that are really jacking up the dopamine. And just to remind you, or to share with you if you haven't heard me talk about this, is that what happens is when you're 10 years old and you find pornography, you get this rush of dopamine into your brain, and your brain loves it. And when I say this to people, they're all like, yeah, they remember that feeling for the first time. And that feeling is what you get attracted back to. But this is the interesting thing, is that what happens is your brain starts trying to recalibrate for this flood right away. It's like, whoa, what the heck is going on? This is like way more dopamine than I've ever had at one time. And it habituates, it calibrates. And so it's trying to reach homeostasis. It's trying to reach that norm. So it adjusts for this flood. So then the second time you find pornography, your baseline has been changed. You need more dopamine. So in the second time, basically, you're getting this double flood. And that's what makes it so addictive or compulsive in the beginning. And that's why your brain is so hijacked. But then your brain's habituating. And then we know what happens in all addictions, but especially when it comes to pornography, is then when you start consuming, you'll hit a level where the amount, the frequency, the length of sessions, the intensity won't be enough to give you the dopamine to feel the reward that you used to. And it's because the dopamine receptors in the reward center of your brain are being fried out. So now you have to give it more and more intense because those receptors aren't working. And so before you know it, you have to consume a lot of pornography. You have to masturbate intensely with it. And you have to watch pornography that has a high level of intensity to get the same rush you used to. But it's damaging the reward center in your brain. It's frying out the frontal lobe. A reason that the frontal lobe is important is it's the braking mechanism. And I talked about this on the podcast recording yesterday too. Why does porn become so addictive? Is because it's taking out your frontal lobe. It's deactivating it. We know this from science. So think of a car that's had its brakes cut. I don't even know if that's a thing anymore. You always used to see it in movies, where they would like take a big clippers and cut them. I'm sure it doesn't work that way anymore, where there's like a weed trimmer and like cutting the brake cable. But it's a good visual, like, cutting that brake cable and then you see, like, in old time movies. I'm probably older than most people here and they don't remember it. Then you see the person like, get in and drive their car down a mountain, they've got no brakes.
That's exactly it's down a mountain.
And they end up crashing because that cable had been cut. But when it comes to pornography, what happens is that cable has been cut from the reward center to your frontal lobe. The brakes are cut. And now your braking mechanism of going back is offline. It's not working. And that's why it can't stop until we heal that frontal lobe. So it really is multifaceted, but it's very dangerous because it happens so early. It's a supernormal stimulus that completely hijacks your brain. And then it's very difficult to come away from without having withdrawal symptoms. Go ahead,
All right.
Jamie.
I've got one from Jack, and it says, how can I reduce fetishes when it's a fetish that is seen in public? I try to look away, but it is rude when I look away if they are talking to me. How can I stop thinking about fetishes?
Yeah, and we talk about fetishes on here. Fetish, is a big word for a preference. And I know that that's not encapsulating it for some people, because true fetishes are, your brain needs that thing. And again, it's like, but I want people to know that if you struggle with a fetish, that is an arousal template that your brain has been linked to. And, again, you can't solve this from within it. You have to do something new. You can excuse yourself if you just can't be around that thing. In the short run, you need to reduce your exposure to that thing so that your brain doesn't get the dopamine hits from it. And so, not going around triggering people. If you are around somebody that's triggering you, excusing yourself and not allowing your brain to linger in that. If you allow your brain to linger in it, you are going to feed it the dopamine that it wants, fire up the neural pathway you're trying to stop, and you're going to make it so that, you're just continuing to be sucked in. So, desperate times call for desperate measures. Remember that. And if you really want out of this, you need a new thought system. You need a new box. You have to get out of the box to solve it. You can't just keep doing the same thing. And that's why I tell people you need to create a new physical and mental environment. So you can't go around triggering people. If you happen to see someone who's triggering, this is the strategy that I shared I made 2 videos on this. One strategy is, and again, you're gonna have to practice it, is to immediately bring yourself out of that triggering aspect of whatever you're experiencing into something in the present that you can anchor yourself into. It's a grounding exercise. When you bring yourself into the present and then you associate, your brain will start to associate the dopamine with something in your present. And one cheesy way that might be effective is to, if you have a partner, redirect yourself to your partner. So you start refiring up the neural pathways of neurochemicals associated with your partner and not with this thing out in the world. Or something as simple as looking at a piece of art. Usually if you're out in the world, there's art or there's flowers or there's something hung around to decorate wherever you are. Anchor into that and find the beauty in that so that you can start associating dopamine hits with your present environment. And again, if you can link it onto your partner, that would be pretty cool. Hey, Strawboy88 has a question. I'm just going to look through these. Jamie, while you're looking around, I'm going to look through these just to say hey to some people. But okay. Do I agree with Jay Stringer about porn addiction may be due to something unresolved psychologically? Yes, absolutely. And I talk about it all the time, is that we know, and I actually made a video on the 2 different types of pornography addiction that's coming out soon. I think it's programmed for Monday. But there's 2 primary ways that porn becomes addictive, and they're different. You can look for that video, but at the core of both of them is usually family dysfunction. And that's why I'm half joking about, my experience over the weekend with no child of mine is ever going to do this, because that's a dysfunctional family pattern. Like when you have adult children, you can't control them. So a healthier pattern is going towards, what, this is something my child wants to do. How can I encourage them to be as safe as possible? And so, I know that doesn't seem like trauma or something that's unresolved psychologically, but it is. And that's why it doesn't have to be this massive traumatic event. Like I said, not to keep saying I'm 48, only God knows I definitely don't want to focus on that. But, I really have been on this journey of doing this myself for 30 years. 30 years later, I still have to deal with that from a parent, even though 30 years I've been trying to resolve that psychologically, that when I go to do something, I would love some support from my parents on it. Just this is cool that you want to explore that. What can I do to help you be safe? How about I help you invest in state-of-the-art helmet? Or how about, we talk about it so that, that is an unresolved psychological pattern, no child of mine. And so, like I've joked here before, half joked, that, when it comes to my kids, when my kids go, what I want to do? I want to jump out of a plane. And I'm like, okay, well, how can we help you jump out of a plane in the safest way? I don't go, no jumping out of planes. And, I only have one child who's 18. All my other kids are under 18. So I could totally pull that parent card on most of them. And I don't. even at the younger ones, and when they're like, I want to do this, like my daughter rides horses. She got kicked by a horse 2 weeks ago. She was quite hurt. And
Oh, wow.
I didn't know this was a thing. When horses go between, if we have any horse riders out there, when horses go between other horses, if they don't feel safe, some horses will kick. So she was riding the horse, and the horse next to her went to kick her horse and ended up kicking her in the foot. Thankfully, it didn't break her foot, but she was really hurt. But like, so the point is, I don't go, oh, you can't ride horses because you get hurt. I nursed her back to health and helped her avoid, thinking of processing it, what happened. And how I always talk about here when it comes to relapses or whatever you have going on, helping to learn from every experience, to break it down, deconstruct it. I call it debriefing, just like you would be debriefed if you came back from war. So, debriefing her on what happened. And, she knows this too. She does it automatically now, even though she's only 10. She goes, okay, I got kicked by a horse because I was too close to the other horse. How can I avoid that again? And she came up with the solutions to that. And then she practiced it the next week. And, she got back up on the horse and doing her thing. So, that's how we resolve. So the action step, because these Q&As are actually coaching sessions for you all. Hopefully you're aware of that. That's my way of trying to coach you, is that the way to resolve them, those psychological issues, is start identifying them. And then of course, when, my dad said that, my mom said that, I got this little twinge of like, that is so frustrating and annoying. But then when I got past that, I'm like, you know what? How do I learn from that? And I am constantly challenging myself. And so now when those things come at me, which they do all the time, because you will find that when you resolve your psychological stuff from the past, if those people are still in your life, it doesn't change it from coming at you. You just deal with it differently. And so every time it comes at me, I'm like, okay, what can I learn from this? How can I respond, not react? And so, back in the day, I might have made a snide comment and told her she doesn't have a choice in that. But instead, I try to use that to pay it forward to the next generation. So when you feel something or you hear something from your parent or from your sibling or from your friends, and you hear something that doesn't resonate with you, again, get quiet. Don't just go to porn and medicate those feelings because you wish your parent could support you, but they can't. Recognize they can't because that's what they were taught. But it's a beautiful gift to you because you can learn what not to do for yourself. And so then I say to myself, you know what? I want to do this. I know there's dangers, which I knew they were coming potentially at me. I didn't know they're going to come at me so soon, if you know what I mean, which by the way, I haven't told my mom about, so nobody tell her. Liz, right? I refuse to give her the satisfaction. I actually haven't talked to her. But so then, being able to learn from that and being able to go, you know what? I like what I'm doing. I think it's cool. I don't need her support. And if I could have gotten it, it would have been great, but I couldn't. So forge ahead, and I got the support from my husband, who's so cool. This is what I say, if you can find a partner who becomes your best friend and really supports you, because I did get hurt on my motorcycle this weekend. When I came home to him, there was no judgment. And actually, he's like, you are one tough, mofo is what he said to me. He's like, you're a tough chick, that's for sure. And he's like, I always knew you were, but yet again, you're showing me how tough you are. How cool is that, right? That's the support that you want. That, when your people show up for you and they're like, you know what, that thing you tried, even though it might not have went the way that you wanted it to, good for you for trying. Good for you for being tough and getting knocked down. Good for you getting back up. Those are the people you want around you. And the other people, if they're still in your life, you can learn from them. So not to wax and wane too much there, but that is really, really important.
So you were talking about neuroplasticity, and so Christopher said, are some people's neuroplasticity faster or slower than others?
Yes, definitely. And I can see that in a person's brain. That's the perk of being able to peek into people's brains when I work with them. So of course, there's some people whose neuroplasticity is slower, some people's that is faster. But in all honesty, the vast majority of people's brains are in the middle ranges. But like I'm always telling you, there's things that you can do to increase neuroplasticity. So dealing with the psychological junk from the past is one thing. We know that past dysfunctional patterns and traumas lock your brain up. They create neurorigidity. And that's the first step in my 90-day program, is to investigate, discover, explore, look back as long as you need to decide what's back there that needs to be resolved, and then resolve it. Because when you resolve it, you create more neuroplasticity. And then all of the action steps that I'm telling you here are built on the idea of neuroplasticity. They're designed to create neuroplasticity. So anytime you use them, guess what? You're creating more neuroplasticity for faster results. That's why I'm here doing that, because I want all of you to be able to tap into that. So that is, what we're here about. So yeah, inherently some people's is faster and slower, but for most people, it's in the middle. And the most important takeaway is that you do more things. The more you do, the more you change, the more you listen to me and implement it, the more you get on purpose, the more your brain changes, the faster you create more neuroplasticity. So that's a pretty cool thing. AR, I saw your email, my friend, just so you know, and I did not get a chance to respond. And you got this. You can do this. Stay the course. And I won't share any details of AR's email, but I did read it. And I want everybody out there to know, creating a pace for yourself that keeps you engaged so you can evolve. I know it's a tagline, but I created it so that it stays with your mind, because it's true. If you keep engaging with the material here, or if you join one of my programs and you continue to engage in the material, you will evolve. And it ebbs and it flows. It's not a perfect process for most people. Stay the course and you will continue to change. I have to share something, and then we'll still do, because I told Jamie not to let me forget to do this, but I'm reminding myself right now. It's not a shameless sales plug, so nobody go anywhere. But what I told you, I'm creating a nonprofit organization, and we've created an awesome $19 program that we are going to be selling during September, but they're donations. So if you want to donate $19 and get a program, and I forget how many minutes it is, it's like an hour and a half program of the 3x3 method that I'm always talking about, we are going to add up how much we are raising, and we are going to share that with you on a consistent basis to let you know that your money is being contributed to the nonprofit. And then once we have all of that money, we're going to make that big donation with all of you here who are the founding fathers of this Porn Brain Reboot program, because we are establishing this nonprofit together, which I think is totally awesome. So I want you to know how much money we're raising towards that. Every single cent is going into the nonprofit. And what we're going to do with the nonprofit, as of right now, is we're creating digital programs for sex education in schools so young people can learn about the dangers of pornography. We are going to be creating more digital programs, and we're going to be creating lots more content for free to be able to support people who are leaving it behind. And we're going to create digital programs for leaders, and leaders being church leaders, because I know many of you out there, I talk to people all the time, they go to their church or their religious organization, and their leaders don't know how to help them with the neuroscience perspective. They will know a little bit, at least, once they get done with the digital program. Prisons are filled with people with pornography and sexual issues. We're going to get a digital program into prisons, so when people come out, they're healed. They won't have to deal with this junk when they come back out. They can actually transform. And psychologists and doctors don't know about this. You know how many times I hear from people that I went to my psychologist and they told me porn's no big deal. I went to my urologist and he told me that porn doesn't have anything to do with my erectile dysfunction. They are wrong. They just don't know. And people have been telling me this for years, like, why doesn't my doctor know? And I'm like, they just don't know. Time for a new doctor who knows about this stuff. Time for a new therapist. But the reality is a lot of them don't know it. So we're going to create a short digital program that we can give to these people for free with your donations. So the next time a person goes to their urologist will have an easy digital program that tells them, in fact, pornography consumption, masturbation, and sexual acting out is at the root of most people's erectile dysfunction, especially young people's these days. So if you would like to contribute to that, it's going to be available for pre-order starting next week, $19. So it is a huge value because you're going to get an amazing program for it. and you're also going to contribute to the donations. And then you're going to see that check at the end of September, October 1st. We're going to put it into the nonprofit and get it rolling. So I hope you'll join me, because obviously I'm pretty psyched about it. We're going to change the world together. So, okay, so let's get a couple more questions. Do you have?
I do. This one is from Dan on the YouTube. Is it possible to beat pornography with willpower alone?
Hi, Dan. What's going on there? Thank you for contributing, and you know how much I appreciate you. So, is it possible to beat pornography with willpower alone? No. My answer to that is no. And I'm sure you all could probably put comments in that you've tried on willpower alone. And if you have, put it in there, because I'd love for you to go, yeah, I've tried willpower. That does not work. Willpower without a plan isn't going to work. And willpower with a plan, yes. And so the way I talk about it is, when you decide you're going to beat pornography, you need to, first of all, commit. Got to be 100% committed, so that when you get knocked down, you get back up. That's what commitment does for you. Then you have to have a plan, so you know how to move forward and to be able to do this thing successfully. And then, to me, willpower is grit and discipline and resilience. So what that means is you're tough. If you're gritty, you're one tough dude or person. You can get your action up and you can go, oh man, that really stunk, but I'm going forward with this. And you can, get back on the horse and keep riding again. Discipline is you have a plan and you follow it. So willpower is like, I'm going to try really hard. I'm going to white knuckle this. I'm going to try really hard to get through withdrawal symptoms. That's not a plan. That's why I have programs at 3 different levels. So even for $49, you can get a plan. This $19 program that we're taking donations for can give you a plan. Then you have a plan, and then you work the plan. That's the discipline. Then resilience is when you mess up. I talked to a person not having to do with porn, a person I've been coaching who's a professional for a long time, who I haven't seen in a while. And it's a woman. She was really cute. She jumps on and she's like, you know what I've done since I've last seen you? I haven't seen her in a long time. She's like, I'm so glad to talk to you. She said she feels like she's YouTube stalking me on my other channel for my neurofeedback. Really cute. She's like, since I've last talked to you, I've done everything that you've told me not to do. And I've done all the mistakes that you told me not to make, because you've made them, and I don't have to learn. I don't have to make them to learn. I can learn from your mistakes. So basically she's like, I've done everything wrong. I need to regroup with you. That's what my programs are about. That's why I'm here. So when you meet me here on a Friday, you regroup. And the reason I have these on a Friday is because the weekends are tough for people. I want you to regroup, get motivated right now, do something different this weekend. That's why I always end with make a plan for this weekend. So willpower alone will not do it. Willpower plus a plan, plus resilience, so you can get yourself back up and learn from your mistakes. That is how you will succeed, not willpower alone.
We got one more that we should squeeze in. You did talk about this earlier, but any tips on how to make the edge off work? Trying to naps, watching TV, YouTube, but I still have the urge to replace via PMO.
Yeah. So, Gabe, thank you. This is a great question, and you're totally right. You have to find something that works for you. And especially like as you are here, we're going to swap out the habit. So the habit of PMO has probably filled, that's what we're supposed to be talking about today, the void that pornography leaves behind and how to fill that void. You definitely have to come up with a way to fill that void. And, naps and watching TV, that's probably too close to PMO. So that's not a good habit swap out. It's a slippery slope. And it could be the hijacker who's trying to convince you you're doing something else, but it leads to it. And so like, for example, I talked to a bunch of people this week, again, not to keep saying that, but I take a nap, but I'm laying there with my thoughts, and I haven't watched porn, but I just end up masturbating to my thoughts. That's not going to get you where you need to go. So developing a new habit that will serve you. So for example, I work with one gentleman who was actually, no, he's not now because he retired, but I was going to say he probably still was a prison guard. very stressful job, right? Edge needs to be taken off big time after 14-hour shifts guarding a prison. He was the yard guard. He'd be out in the yard, super stressful, hyper vigilant. His brain's on that extra fast speed on steroids for a really long time, day after day after day. And so we came up with the plan that he successfully did this. He played basketball in the yard. Like the inmates would go back in, he would play basketball before he got in his car. He'd bring that energy down before he even got in the car to go home. And that really worked for him. And that might not work for you or for somebody else, but you have to find the thing that works for you. But it has to be engagement. Like naps and TV and YouTube aren't engagement. You have to actually go do something in the world, and you can do it in your yard like I do when I'm boxing my general. So for you, I haven't talked about it in a little while because I'm too busy riding my motorcycle, but I go out in my yard. I don't do it with anybody else. I box. And so that's a really great energy. That's just a really great activity that brings all that fast energy down out of my brain, but I'm engaged because I'm sitting in front of a computer all day long. So for some people that can be cooking, some people that can be dancing, some people that can be art, it can be running, it can be, that's why you search your mind for what do I like to do? And if you can't come up with anything, it's because PMO has filled that void for so long. What did I like to do when I was young? And I bet you if you do that, you'll find out what you want to go do. And, I'm always talking about how my husband plays golf on Fridays. So, he was actually trying to call a little while ago, but he's like, I'm not going to be around till 7:00 tonight. And I'm like, yeah, I know. Have fun. I'll see you at 7:00. And, that's a way for him after a long week of work. He loves to golf on Friday afternoons. He hangs out with his dudes. He actually not such a long week of work. He didn't even work on Monday. He did a golf tournament, but that really feeds his soul. And so that's the way it takes the edge off. And, exercise for me, my stand-up paddle boards do it for me. Going out to hang out, like usually on Friday nights, we hang out with our friends. That's a really good way to have connection. When we usually have no agenda. This week, there's like a luau party at the pool in our neighborhood. So I'm sure we'll end up just walking up there, hanging out, and just letting the energy come down in an engaged way. If you don't have a place in the world with other people, get it. Create it. Remember what I said at the beginning of this live, and I'm gonna have to wrap up soon because I have a meeting soon. Do you have a 1:00, Jamie? Because I kept you on last week. Or you're good. Okay, so we'll wrap up in just a minute. But last week we got off. Jamie's like, I had a 1:00. I'm like, do you have to because you're not 10 minutes late for an appointment because I'm going on and on and on. But it is important to wrap up the thought is that, if you don't have people, again, going back to like the spitting straight facts with love, create it. You might not be able to have people or community in the next day, but if you start thinking about it right now, especially as you leave pornography behind, you will have people. So COVID's coming back with this whole variant, but I was practicing boxing. I want to go up to the boxing gym so I can have other people that I'm boxing with and just have some fun and meet some people. And that's my next intention in that area so that I can meet some boxing people. That's how I met my neighbors. I'm not a person, if you know me or if you hear me talk, like me going to hang out with neighbors doesn't come inherently to me. But I've taught myself that it feeds me. So I go up there and I hang out and I inevitably have a good time. And so in doing so, I've created connection. Okay, anything else here before we wrap up for the weekend?
One more. You did touch on this earlier, but how do you deal with withdrawal symptoms?
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much for being a contributor. And how do we deal with withdrawal symptoms? With fortitude, and we forge strength through the fire. But I will tell you, if you haven't gotten the brain training headband that I talk about, that you can buy directly from the manufacturer, and we have it. Jamie, did you ever put that like on the dashboard in YouTube or where people can find it easily?
I can put it on the video that talks about this.
Yeah, and maybe you can make sure it's in like just the description on our channel too. I don't know if it ever got there.
This is what it looks like if you can see it.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks, Jamie. It's called a Muse headband. The reason I'm telling you this is because for many people, withdrawal comes from that unwiring and rewiring of your brain. So if you start using this headband, especially like let's say you haven't really tried hard and made a plan and developed your discipline and resilience, get the headband, because it's going to help you to be able to do those things. You're going to have less withdrawal. Let me just put it that way, because you will be rewiring your brain before you start strategizing. And so when people come to me and they're like, I've tried so many times and I've tried all the strategies that you talk about and that you share, I'm like, you need to get the headband. Just start there. Commit to using it 3, 4, 5, 6 times a week. Give yourself a day off. Start with 5-minute sessions, move up to 15 minutes. You will literally be pulling your brain in the right direction. It does not put anything into your brain. It teaches your brain to work better. And if you start doing that, withdrawal symptoms will be less. But then again, change your physical and your mental environment. If you have negative thoughts and low self-esteem, start taking action steps to feel better about yourself. Start becoming the person that you want to, because then you live in dignity and integrity. And then you can look yourself in the eyes, and then withdrawal is less, because first of all, your brain's in a new spot and you're constantly doing things in a new physical and mental environment, new routines, new habits, new thought processes, moving towards those uncomfortable emotions. You're rocking out all the things that you need to do with a better brain, and you'll be able to succeed greater. And if you have withdrawal symptoms that are really making you feel bad, move your body, lift something heavy. Just remember that if you lift heavy stuff, it floods your brain and it gets your dopamine going and other neurochemicals, and it can really offset withdrawal. I have one person who his claim to fame was, every Friday he'd go lift some heavy stuff, because that's when he was most at risk, and it got him through those first couple weeks so that he could start using the strategies and succeed long-term. And I love that. It's an amazing thing. Okay, I have to wrap up, because actually, as I sit here, I was wondering what the life of these AirPods are, because I've been on these AirPods nonstop. I'm like, I wonder when they're going to die, because I've been on meetings for hours and I have to work till literally 3:30 nonstop. So, okay. So please, everybody, make a plan for this weekend. If you don't have plans for tomorrow, get some. If the rest of your day, you plan on watching YouTube and lounging around, don't. Get intentional, make a plan for the rest of the day, flexibly schedule it. So it doesn't feel like a major plan. It just feels like you've got some stuff to do. Do that for Saturday and do that for Sunday. Be intentional. Intention means you are going to decide what you're going to do with your time, and you're going to do it. And remember, every single action step you take takes you closer to your goal or further away from your goal. Take the action steps that bring you further towards your goal in a positive way, and do it this weekend. And next week, we are going to record a live. We're not going to be here live. Just for anybody who doesn't know this about my schedule, I very intentionally have a creative week the last week of the month, and I don't have any appointments, so that I can get into the zone to be able to bring you more videos, to be able to create more content. And so I'm going to record a video that'll be here next Friday, but we won't be live. We'll be live the week after that, and we will be refreshed. We will be new into September. We're going to be raising funds for our cause, and we're going to rock this thing out together. Jamie, anything else before we wrap up?
Yeah, one thing, if anybody would like to get their email address added to that list that we will be sending out links for that 3x3 program, please send an email to info@drtrishleigh.com. I put it in the link in the chat here, and I also put the link to order the Muse headband if you are interested. And I will also put it under the original video. So thank you for all your questions today.
Yeah, and we're going to have more small workshops too. So we've had a page on the Porn Reboot website for workshops. So you'll be able to find this workshop there for pre-order next week. And then as we create new ones, there'll be a whole host of workshops that are priced low that are donations into this program. So you can look for more in the future. All right, everybody, thank you so much for being with us. I totally appreciate it. I hope you got value out of our time together. I so appreciate everybody who has made donations already and who plan on making donations. This really is a tsunami, silent tsunami that's coming for the world, and we have the power to change it right here in these live streams. I know it might seem ridiculous to some of you, but it's not. We hold a lot of power here, so I appreciate our time together. Have an awesome weekend, rock it out, and I will see you live in 2 weeks. Okay, bye, Jamie. Thank you. Have a great weekend yourself, and I'll talk to you soon. Okay, bye.
Bye.